This is WCBU's Out and About. I'm Dr. May Gilliland of ArtsPartners of Central Illinois, and today I'm joined by Dr. Cory Boulton, Coordinator of Music Education and Director of Choral Activities at Bradley University. On July 26th, the Gratus Choral Ensemble will present The Lost Birds, a moving work by Grammy-nominated composer Christopher Tin. The free concert explores the beauty of birdsong, the grief of species lost to extinction, and our relationship with the natural world. Dr. Boulton, welcome to Out and About.
I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
The title itself, The Lost Birds, I found immediately intriguing. Tell us about this work and what audiences will experience during the performance.
Well, the work is actually based on the poetry of four of the most prolific female poets of the late 19th century and early 20th century, Christina Rossetti, Sarah Teasdale, and Millie Dickinson, which is probably the most well-known, and then Millet. And separately, they wrote poetry about the passenger pigeon, which at that time was in numbers of the billions. And so they wrote about the beauty and magnificence of these birds and how they would fly in flocks of a mile wide, which is actually one of the names of the movements in the piece. But and they would darken the skies because it would be so dense. So the afternoon it would be dark, and there would be a roar in the sky. Wow. So they wrote about this magnificence and the abundance of these birds, and then eventually the seeming disappearance of these birds, because at that time they were starting to hunt these birds not only for cheap meat but for sport. But they all died before the last passenger pigeon died, who was actually at the Cincinnati Zoo in 1914. They called her Martha. I thought those were a really cute name. But they were writing about the disappearance, but having no idea of the magnitude of the extinction that was to come. And so 100 years later, Christopher Tin found these writings and compiled them into a 12-movement work that's really about, yes, the extinction of birds, but sort of a larger meditation on the extinction of nature and beauty and abundance and all of the things that are most important to us that we don't realize are until they're gone. And so there's this emotional arc through the piece from this beauty and abundance and magnificence to loss and grief and sadness and silence, which is important in the piece, and then hope and a call to action for us before it's too late.
I want to talk a little bit more about how this work draws on these texts. I'm curious how that shapes the emotional experience for both the choir and the audience.
You know, when I first heard this piece, I thought it was tremendous. But when I sat with the text, I said, this is extraordinary. And I really think Christopher Tin does a good job at highlighting the ebbs and flows of the emotions in the texts with the music. There's string quartet and harp with it, which produces, as you can imagine, quite a longing with the bow of the string. And I mentioned earlier that silence is really important for the emphasis of loss and reflection and sadness and thought for the future.
You have opportunities before and after the concert to get involved, so tell us a little bit more.
Well, before the concert, we'll have a sort of a pre-concert lecture that will involve the Sierra Club and the Audubon Society, some representatives from there talking about the work that they're doing right now and the importance of that work and in relation to the piece. And then I'll talk about the piece itself, the poetry, the meaning, and how the music is weaved with the poetry. And then the most important part, I think, is how to listen to the piece in a way that it becomes meaningful to the listener. And then after the concert, there'll be a reception, and those organizations and the singers will also be in that reception to field questions, to talk about how people become more involved in ways that they feel like they want to contribute, whether it's their time or finances. And we want this to be an experience for people and not just another concert.
That was Dr. Cory Boulton discussing The Lost Birds, presented by the Gratus Choral Ensemble on July 26th at First Federated Church in Peoria. Dr. Boulton, thank you so much for joining me in the studio today.
I'm so grateful to have been here.
You've been listening to Out and About, a production of WCBU and ArtsPartners of Central Illinois, designed to connect you with the arts community. Our producer is Joey Wilson. Find this episode at WCBU.org and subscribe to the Out and About podcast wherever you download.
Support for arts and culture coverage on WCBU comes from PNC Financial Services. PNC is committed to supporting local art and culture events in the communities they serve.